Okay, it is Tuesday, April 27th. We have a full morning agenda that's going to kick off with Mr. Zaleski giving us the FY22 release of the proposed budget. But as we always do, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and take a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
I like this chair better over here. It's a better chair.
Although it's not on the agenda, we'll be switching Commissioner Wance's chair to the one
so
over
there's
to the
that.
right.
Yeah.
So,
How you doing over there, Tim? Nice to see you.
what I'd like to do is quickly go through a priority carol, and I can just kick off. Some of you know I was on a long weekend, and I went down to Florida. What impressed me the most, besides the fish that were caught, were those that were wearing masks, both in Florida and in Atlanta. I mean, not wearing a mask was definitely not the norm, and it surprised me. Everybody, shopkeepers, hotel patrons, all wearing masks, and just kind of caught me off guard. And then I can also talk about the fish stories, and the ones that got away were just amazingly, Laura. I mean, it's epic, to say the least. And then the second thing is, let's just continue have our thoughts for strength and courage to India and what's going on over there with COVID-19. They thought they had it beat. They, put their guard down, became complacent, and now it's beyond a hockey stick, and it is vertical with the amount of deaths. People are waiting to get their loved ones cremated right now because of the amount of death that's happening over in India due to COVID-19. So the story of that one is, please, let's not become complacent and work towards eradicating this once and for all. So, okay, let's, Commissioner Wance.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Very nice tie.
Thank you very much.
Very flowery.
It's all about spring. Just a couple quick things for me. And to your point, Commissioner Rothstein, remaining ever so vigilant here is very important. We're seeing some really good positive signs here. So that light's getting a lot brighter at the end of that tunnel, but we can't let our guard down. And that's a perfect example as to why we can't, because that's exactly what they did. Mm-hmm. Just two quick things from me. I want to take priority carol this morning to a different level, if you will, and give our condolences and sympathies to two incredible gentlemen that we've lost over the last several days. One of those is Ken Hornberger. Ken touched the lives of, good grief, a ton of people in Carroll, and was just a great friend to many of us. Often asked me why in the world I ever wanted to get into this crazy business of politics, because he had that background. You know, he was in with the council, and of course his wife served in Annapolis. But we had some excellent talks over Chinese food many evenings, and he was just a great guy. To his family, we offer our condolences. And then also a little bit of a Carroll County touch for this gentleman, and I think those of you that spent a lot of time at Mako will remember him, and that's Captain Jim. Jim McMahon was another incredible guy. Served in the fire department, served as a police officer, was an elected official, and when he walked into the room, he brightened it up immediately. And did we have some great talks in Ocean City and at the winter conference in Cambridge. Captain Jim was a character. Dick, you and I had some interesting conversations with Captain Jim.
Definitely.
And we must give our condolences to a local touch here, and that's Patty Welk Wolf, who happens to be a distant relative of mine who I've known for years. She grew up in Pleasant Valley and went beyond, obviously, But our condolences to Captain Jim's family and to Patty and to everyone associated with those two gentlemen. You are certainly in our thoughts and prayers. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. May their memories be a blessing. Commissioner Weaver.
Yeah, first, thank you, Commissioner Wance, for remembering those two honorable gentlemen who no longer with us. And Commissioner Rothstein, you mentioned what's happening in India. And yes, I think spring's coming. Everybody's feeling better. Hopefully we just don't leave our guard down. We still have to stay the course on this. We're dealing with unknowns. And while we have unknowns, we have to deal with them the best we possibly can. On a different note, though, we do have municipality elections coming up here in the very near future. And I know Hampstead tonight has its forum, listening to their candidates. And, I don't care who you vote for, just get out and vote. Listen to your forums. Pick the candidates you think are going to be best for your town and municipality, and vote for them. But the number of people need to get out and vote. I've talked to some people. They don't even know some people don't even know we have an election coming up here in May for a lot of these areas. So please tell your friends, neighbors, register, vote, and I'm sure the towns will do fine. I mean, we have a lot of good people running for these seats, and I am confident we're going to have good town councils here in the future. So my parting word is get out and vote. That's it. This is your chance to say who you want to be a leader in your local municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boucher.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Commissioner Weaver and Commissioner Frazier for advocating the importance of our municipal elections. They seem to have very low voter turnout, but I think the more we as leaders advocate for people to get out and vote, hopefully we'll get the turnout, because I think that's a good starting point for people who want to rise up, potentially become a commissioner or state delegate. It's a good chance to get your toe in the water, so to speak, and understand the ropes. Also want to thank the Winfield Rec Council. On Saturday, Sheriff DeWeese and I were in the parade and gave open ceremony speeches for the Winfield Girls League. It was absolutely a wonderful day. Beautiful people, lots of young ladies out there being competitive in sports. Heartwarming to see it all. And I want to give a special thanks out to Buddy Brown and Dave Becker for making that event possible. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think we are now ready for the excitement to begin, and where Mr. Zaleski and Deb will be providing the FY22 release of our proposed budget. And just to kick it off, a sincere thanks, professional thank you to you and your team in getting us to where we are today through the work sessions and through listening and learning what our priorities were, being able to package it and share with us where we are today. So with that, Ted?
You might want
what?
Say Dennis isn't with us today, but he'll be watching.
Commissioner Frazier is not with us today, but he'll be watching.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Okay.
in case somebody was wondering about the seating up here.
In case somebody was wondering about the seating up here,
Yeah.
Commissioner Frazier is not here, but we do have our esteemed Mr. Burke and Ms.
We do.
Wyndham. And it is hard, obviously, well, I won't say obviously, it is hard to see. We do have and maintain the plexiglass between us and the air purifiers. And if we felt that there was no protection here, we would definitely not be doing this. So we're taking full due diligence in keeping ourselves protected. Isn't that right, Mr. Burke?
I suspect you'll never be taking this one down.
We may blacken it. I'll put it that way.
Didn't we order one for the front too?
Yeah, we.
I feel like I'm in a fishbowl.
Curtains.
Okay.
All right.
There is a pause of silence. Go for it, Mr. Zaleski.
All right. It's kind of a running joke in the budget office. We keep saying someday it's going to get easier. It hasn't. Seems like it just keeps getting harder and harder. And this year was another difficult one. And I think it's important for people listening to and trying to understand what's happening here, to have some greater context. You know, it's been more than a decade now since the Great Recession, but we've never really recovered. You know, we stabilized, but things never got good again. And we've been dealing with the aftermath of the Great Recession for all these years. Then COVID came, changed a lot of things for us. When you adopted the fiscal year 21 budget, the budget will be leaving. You adopted one that was slightly smaller than fiscal year 20 in anticipation of what might come out of COVID. And you may remember when we started figuring out what might be the effect of businesses shutting down, people losing jobs. We talked about the possibility of losing $4 million a month for as long as that went on. And that's on a budget of a little more than $400 million. So it's a big deal. Good news, that didn't happen. And the simple answer to why didn't that happen is the federal stimulus. Putting aside what people might think about how the federal government operates and runs its budget and expenditures at the local level, the federal stimulus changed everything. We did not have that negative impact very directly because of that. And interestingly, because you did budget very conservatively, we did get the help from the federal government. We actually ended up with an opportunity out of fiscal year 21 as you looked ahead to 22 and beyond. And we'll be talking more about that as we get deeper into the budget. So we're here today to talk about the fiscal year 22 proposed budget and the 22 through 27 operating and community investment plans. This is the point in the process where the budget becomes the commissioners, what they are offering to the public. Previously, the budget office had brought them a recommended budget as their starting point for deliberations. Now this is the commissioner saying to all of you out there, here's where we think we're going. This is your opportunity now to react to the choices we've made before we actually adopt the budget. Now we're not going to be covering everything in the budget today. There's just too much. But we are going to be trying to talk about what are the things that are changing? What were the decisions that were made? What are the things we think might be interesting for people to understand? You know, now, just want to remind people that a little bit unusual in Carroll County, our entire budget process is open to the public. That's not the case everywhere, particularly in the charter counties where you have a county executive. A budget is put together and then released. Nobody has seen it to that point. Anybody who's interested could have actually watched all the discussions. The first time we came in with an overview, we talked about our revenue projections. We brought the recommended budget and then everything that you've done since then. Sessions are shown live and replayed on Comcast Channel 24. Our sessions are streamed in high definition on the county's YouTube channel. And budget sessions can be found on our website at carrollcountymaryland.gov. Now, because it is open, anybody who has been following this is not going to be surprised by anything we're going to say today. So the point here isn't to say, let us tell you what happened. It's more to say, let us try and capture everything that happened, give you some context, give you some understanding for how we ended up where we are. Also on the idea of an open budget process, you can go to the county web calendar and find links to the video. News releases available through Carroll Connect, the county's email subscription service. So you actually can sign up to get automatic emails on various topics if you would like to be updated on what's happening at the county. And then we also have information available on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. The list might be even longer than I know. So on to our 22 proposed budget and our plans. The first part of what we're going to go through today is going to be focused on actions the commissioners took between the recommended budget and the proposed budget. And then a little bit later, we'll be looking at it a little bit different way to say what's in this proposed budget. So there are some things we will hear more than once because we're looking at them in different ways, kind of repackaging. So commissioner actions, what are the things that they they did. What choices did they make as we went through this process? In education, Carroll Community College added a little bit over $1 million over 3 years for technology. This is extending what has been a successful partnership between fundraising efforts at the college and the commissioners providing funding. The Carroll County Public Library commissioners added $1.1 million of one-time money toward Exploration Commons, the new project at the Westminster Library, and added approximately $300,000 of ongoing funding beginning in FY22. That was to allow the library to provide an additional salary increase. In public safety, the sheriff, the commissioners added $2 million of ongoing funding for salary increases. This is in addition to the $700,000 that was already built into the recommendation. They also agreed to convert a correctional deputy position to a correctional specialist in fiscal year 22. Also for the sheriff, the commissioners included $30 million for a sheriff headquarters building. This was scheduled for 25 and 26. Eliminated the about approximately $7 million project for a new Eldersburg precinct and the associated operating impacts. And back on the headquarters, because of the timing, there will be operating impacts of this project that don't show up anywhere in our plans because they're beyond the time frame we're looking at. Commissioners added $1.5 million to forward fund 10 years of a lease for the sheriff at the old North Carroll High School and included $125,000 to renovate a piece of the old North Carroll High School to accommodate the body-worn camera unit. Body-worn cameras will come up more as we go through this budget. State Attorney's Office, Commissioner added 2 additional positions in fiscal year 25 for body-worn camera program. There were already 5 built into the recommendation, so this takes it to a total of 7. There are 2 positions for the state's attorney in fiscal year 22, recognizing that some of our municipalities already have body-worn cameras in place, and the work that the state's attorney needs to do is already happening, even though, and I didn't say this, but a lot of this is being driven by legislation that will require us to provide body-worn cameras. So even though that doesn't take effect until 25, some of the municipalities are already using it. The state's attorney is already having to deal with it. And then there's approximately $400,000 of one-time funding to provide self-contained breathing apparatus for the Westminster Fire Company. In public safety, our 911, we've been talking for a number of years about the need to add additional positions. The question has been how to fund them. The commissioner added 6 positions in fiscal year 22. And this is tied to a change in the 911 fee rate in Carroll County. And they added $25,000 annually for the University of Maryland Medical Center Shock Trauma Center. We have been funding this kind of a year at a time for a number of years. This now changes it, so it's built into our plan. In Public Works, another long talked about topic, the unpaved roads in Carroll County. Something in the vicinity of 55 miles remain, I think. And I just got almost a smile from Commissioner Vance.
Well, I'm wondering if this is where I get up and dance, or should we pause?
For people who can't see Commissioner Vance, he's doing his happy.
You realize the Board of Commissioners was the Board of Roads Commissioners originally to pave roads in the county. And finally, after I don't know how many years, that will be accomplished.
Didn't you run then?
In 1907, I think.
Whatever it was the Board of Roads Commissioners.
So we got something for the north, and now we're going to have something for the south.
But before we go south, the unpaved roads, Commissioners added $4.3 million in one-time funding to try to pave all the remaining unpaved roads. Then heading south, another long talked about topic, the extension of Ride Narrow Road Way along Route 26 in Eldersburg for years. to leave us flexibility for what might come with COVID. So we were sitting on a bigger amount of cash than we might typically. And because we budgeted very conservatively in fiscal year 21, didn't see the impact of revenues that we expected, we actually are going to end up with a surplus in fiscal year 21. That would be more than we typically would expect. Between those two things, we find ourselves with the opportunity to provide one-time funding far beyond anything we would see in most years. The unpaved roads, Rockenauer and Georgetown Boulevard I just talked about, those are getting accomplished because of the availability of this one-time money. The biggest thing we're doing with this money is to try and take some steps toward another problem we've been talking for a long time. How are we going to deal with solid waste in the northern landfill and the need to balance that budget? There's $25 million in here, partially to do some studies about how to deal with that. But the biggest piece is to construct cell 4, relocate the transfer station, and relocate to this drop-off area. Also connected to solid waste, a change, because the changes we're going to make at the landfill, we're going to bury more solid waste rather than transfer it, which reduces a significant cost for us. So we were able to reduce, beginning in 23, what we would have been transferring from the general fund to the solid waste fund of $2 million a year. A smaller change, this is compensation to boards and commissions. Now, this has already been misinterpreted a number of times, so I want to be clear. This is not about the Board of County Commissioners. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Board of License Commissioners. The commissioners have increased the compensation for people serving on those boards and commissions for the first time in many years. Farm Museum, $500,000 one time to replace a pavilion. This will be in fiscal year 23. That was moved up from the recommended year in fiscal year 26. Commissioners added $20,000 one time to the Historical Society, and we've added a little over $100,000, well, closer to $150,000 of ongoing funding for 2 positions at the Board of Elections. Just want to point out as I say that the Board of Elections does not report to the commissioners. This is not a county agency, it's a state agency, but the county and the commissioners are given the responsibility of funding their operations. Salaries. This is another thing we've talked about for a long time. I guess the theme here is there's a lot of things that are being acted on that have been conversations we've been having for literally years. Talking about solid waste for decades. But the recommendation on salaries included 3.55% COLA. That is necessary for us to meet the minimum wage legislation that is increasing or is being phased in every 4 years. So for the next 4 years, we have 3.55% COLAs built in so that we will be in compliance with the law. The commissioners recognizing a few things. One, that raising the minimum wage lifts the minimum wage employees, but bumps them up against employees who are already on the scale above them. And that COLA shifts scales, but does not move people through the scales. You know, the easy idea of understanding that is if the only thing that's happening is getting COLAs and there's nothing to move people because they've been here, every time we hire somebody who's doing the same job as somebody else who's been here, they will end up being paid the same. So somebody could be here for 5 years, get COLAs, but then find themselves making exactly the same thing as a brand new employee. So the commissioners added 2% for a salary increment to try and address that problem. What we're still left to deal with or think about in some way is that idea of having lifted the minimum wage up against the bottom of our pay scales. that problem still remains. So we talked about that opportunity to use that cash we had accumulated, what we call here fund balance. I want to come at this a couple different ways in these next slides. First, in the recommendation, we had built in some fairly modest use of unassigned fund balance, in part to try to put our LOSAP, our Length of Service Awards program, a benefit to our volunteer fighters in a better fiscal position. And the other was to restore funding, planned funding to roads, facilities, and information technology that had been taken out in the last budget process, not because there was any desire to reduce what they were doing, but trying to get the budget balanced. So in addition to those things we had already built in, the commissioners added $29 million in fiscal year 22. The biggest piece of that is that $25 million that I was just talking about, and then smaller amounts in 23, 24, and 25. In fiscal year 22 specifically, using fund balance, there's almost $38 million going in. About 4.5 of that is something we would have done every year, where we assume there's about 1% of the budget available to carry over. From fiscal year 20, the year that was already completed, we're using about $30 million. Out of 21, the year we're still in, we're using about $3 million. Now, typically, we don't make use of what we expect to have available this year in the next budget. So this is a little bit out of the norm, but the amount we're expecting is large enough that this is not a concern for us. And then there's also $3.5 million out of what we call current year surplus. This is really not a decision the commissioners made. This is the impact of things that happen in our budget, like an installment purchase agreement coming to an end, which releases some money that was reserved. And then I talked about us using money out of fiscal year 21, this unusual way of taking money from this year directly into our plans. So we have right now projected to have $26.5 million available at the end of fiscal year 21. Just want to point out, we're not done. And one big question mark we have remaining is half of our income tax for the entire year is left to be collected. That could change to the good or bad. So one of my messages to the commissioners when we're looking at this is don't get too comfortable with this number because we don't really know it yet. But we've left ourselves enough room that I think we're comfortable with where we landed. So you can see that we've directed some of this money to a number of years in our plan. And that as things stand, we have about $8.5 million that we think is still available. Let's turn for a minute to the state budget. We need to talk about the state because it has some direct impact on the county budget, although not the impact that it once had. But it has a very large impact on some of our partners, people that we care about and provide funding to. So Carroll County Public Schools, they're getting $136.2 million from the state, an increase of $100,000. We're in an unusual situation in that public school systems across the state lost enrollment because of COVID, as people either moved to private schools or kept their children home for homeschooling. State funding is largely driven by enrollment, so there was concern, what is this going to mean for school funding? And what came out of this was an idea that the state would basically ignore these enrollment drops. Nobody would lose funding, and in fact, in the governor's budget, he said everybody will get an increase. $100,000 is the increase that Carroll County Public Schools got. So not a lot of new money to work with, but at least it wasn't a loss of revenue. The community college got $9.8 million, an increase of 1.1. This is the largest increase they've had from the state in many years. And Carroll County Public Library got a small increase, $24,000. Health Department gets $2.4 million, an increase of about $50,000. Okay, money actually coming to the commissioners. Everything I just said does not come to the commissioners. They don't control it. They don't get to say what to do with it. The money that I'm talking about now is in your hands. Highway user revenue, we're seeing a small decrease. And we don't need to spend a lot of time here, but there's two things going on here. One is how is the state choosing to fund counties? And the other is, how much money are they actually collecting for the things that feed into highway use revenue, like gas tax and license and registration, those kinds of things. And we did see a loss of revenue as we went through COVID. People were driving less. You know, if you think back to March and April, it was very strange being out on the road. You go out and you would expect to see cars, and sometimes there just weren't any cars around. They weren't buying gas. Highway user revenue dropped. Police aid, a small increase, basically flat. Program open space, $1.8 million. We're seeing a bit of an increase there. And then related to program open space, but it's not part of the program open space program itself, but there's a $1.5 million grant from the Department of Natural Resources to be used in the same way we use program open space. So this is going to give us an opportunity to move up some projects in the park capital program. And because program open space has been very volatile in years, every year as we work our way through the capital program, we're working with Rec and Parks to say, if we get less money, how would we react? If we get more money, how would we react? So we were fully prepared to deal with this. So we got the opportunity, and we'll be able to get some things done more quickly. Okay, now if we look at the proposed operating plan, remember in Carroll County, we adopt our budget as we have to for the next year, but we also build a plan for the 5 years to follow. The idea here is we want to project our revenues, project the expenditures that are implied by the decisions we're making today, and make sure that in the future we think there will be enough revenue to cover those expenditures. That is not where we are now. If you look to the bottom, you'll see either in dollars or percent that in the last 4 years of the plan, we're negative. Expenditures are projected to exceed revenues. And by the last year, that's approaching $20 million. This is a problem that we're not in a position to change today. We still have uncertainty about what all is going to emerge from COVID, how we're going to come out of COVID, and what this is going to look like. In theory, we could have made the changes necessary, which would have meant raising revenues, reducing services, or some combination of those two things. We didn't do that this year. This is more of a, let's take a little time to see what this all looks like. But we can't lose that we can't sustain this way. We will need to come back to this. We're going to have to figure out what is our plan to get back to a sustainable arrangement. So changes from the previous operating plan. So we're talking about the commissioners adopted a plan for 21 through 26. Now they're proposing a plan for 26 through 27. What has changed? Now a lot of that is the same things we've just talked about, but there are other things in the mix. The biggest changes are about a handful of things. One is the transition to a combined fire and EMS force. We've been talking about this for a few years. We actually budgeted for it in a very minor way in fiscal year 21. We budgeted for the director and one position, but we had not yet built in the costs of providing this service. And the reason we didn't in 21 and 26 is we just weren't far enough along to know what is it we're going to build in, timing or dollars. We are much further along now. There are still a lot of questions. There are still a lot of things we're trying to work through, but we have a much better idea of what this looks like. So we do have things built into the plan. We'll provide more detail in just a minute, but this is a big driver of the changes in this plan. The body-worn camera program, we talked about this already a little bit. State legislation will require us to use body-worn cameras beginning in fiscal year 26, right? So we have built in
26 or 25?
Because they set it up on a calendar year when it has to be implemented, it will actually affect 26.
Okay, thanks.
So we've built that into the plan. We say built in, that means buying cameras, starting to plan for the replacement of cameras, positions for the state's attorney, and positions for the sheriff. And the big cost of doing this isn't the cameras. That's big enough. It's about $1.5 million. But the big cost is the people to manage and make use of the information that will be generated by these cameras. Another big piece of the change is salaries that we've talked about. Changes that you made for the sheriff's salary plan, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And also the changes that you made that will impact your direct employees and also those in the courts and the state's attorney's office. Two things that worked in your favor that helped make this better picture than it might have been. We were able to reduce our medical internal service fund. And what this is a place, every year we budget money, it goes into this fund. We pay all of our bills. Carroll County is self-insured. So we pay our bills out of this. So money is going in and going out every year. Because we've had good experience in recent years, we've accumulated more money here than we need to have. So we have built into our plan reducing this over a number of years so we don't create a spike in available revenue, but we are reducing the need for funding over years. And the reduction in OPEB, other post-employment benefits, this is healthcare for your retired employees. This is another experience kind of change. Our latest actuarial study indicated we could reduce our funding. And we had some concerns about quickly jumping into the full reduction that they've suggested is possible. So what we've built in here is a $1 million drop each year for the next 6 years. If everything goes as indicated, at the end of 6 years, we're in a $6 million a year better position than we are today. We phased it in that way, though, to give us a little time to see that our actual experience matches up with what the actuaries are suggesting will happen. Okay, on equipment for body-worn cameras, $1.5 million would be to provide actual body-worn cameras and the equipment to put car-mounted cameras. So right now, what we have built in is $500,000 for the body-worn cameras. That was a point of some discussion, and maybe we'll be coming back one day.
Now, is there a potential still to get a grant from the state for the equipment?
There is still the potential, yes.
Okay.
So I talked about changes from the previous op plan for fire and EMS transition. Much of this is about positions. We're adding a lot of positions. If you look all the way down to the bottom right, you see 214 positions. Just for some sense of how big this is for Carroll County, reporting to the commissioners right now, we have something like 650 positions. And we're talking about adding more than 200 positions. In the Great Recession, we reduced our number of positions by about 100. We've never added all those back. So when you think about this, 200 positions, this is huge. So I have a table in front of you that captures where those are going. Of course, the bulk of them are for our EMS providers. You see them being added across the years, 47, 41, 40, or 38, 38, 38. 5-year phase in to this full implementation. Then there are some other positions related to doing this, including 6 county support staff, just recognizing there are certain functions we have that as staffed, we can't pick up another 200 employees and be able to do that. Body-worn cameras, you can see State's Attorney's Office, the 2 positions I mentioned in 22, 5 and 25 for a total of 7. The sheriff will have 5 positions added in 25. So there'll be a total of 12 new positions in connection with implementing this. We have not added 12 positions for anything in any year for a very, very long time. So this isn't big on the same level as the fire EMS transition, but don't let us lose sight. This is also a very big change for Carroll County. Salary plan for the sheriff, $2.7 million total in fiscal year 22. We've had for a number of years, built into the plan, 4% change for the sheriff. That was already in the recommendation. That was about $700,000. Then the commissioners added $2 million to that, which would then grow 4% a year from that new base. In fiscal year 22, on average, that would provide about a 13.5% increase. Not saying that will be applied to each position as 13.5%, but in total. And I mentioned the salary plan for commissioner employees. 3% COLAs were built into the plan. You moved that to 3.55. No, well, the 3.55 was in the plan, wasn't it?
Not in the original recommended, we added it after.
Okay, right, yes, okay. So, yeah, we knew we were gonna have to do this, but not at the time we had the recommendation built. So you made the change from 3 to 3.5. And again, that's to meet the law. We really have no choice in doing this. And then adding a 2% increment to address compression within the scales. And you can see in the chart the total of all of that. The Health Internal Service Fund, I mentioned reducing by $1 million a year. And that actually extends beyond this for a number of years. And then the OPEB reducing $1 million a year, although that would fully accomplish our intended change in this plan. So some operating highlights. Now, we're not just talking about what changes, what decisions did the commissioners make. We're saying, so where did we end up? What does this look like now? So all funds. When we talk about the budget, people are usually talking about the general fund or what they think of as the operating budget, sometimes the capital budget. But we have a number of funds. Well, we mentioned the solid waste fund. We have a utilities fund. We have a grants fund. If you add all those up, we're looking at about $686 million compared to $571 million in fiscal year 21. Just want to point out, this is a really big change, but it is almost all because of that one-time money that we were talking about, that unusual opportunity we have in fiscal year 22. When we adopt the fiscal year 23 budget, this all funds budget is going to drop back down again significantly, as will the general fund. So if we look at the operating budget, we see something very similar. We're going from $417 million to $470 million. This is a change of a size we haven't seen since the early 2000s. But again, this is a little bit of a deceiving picture because this is mostly about one-time money. We are not going to be building in the future on a $470 million budget. This is going to be much smaller again in fiscal year 23. And if you strip out all the one-time stuff, that 12.8% increase is more like a 3.5% increase. So our governmental partners, Carroll County Public Schools, county funding of about $204.5 million, a $6 million increase, 3.13%. And you might remember last year, we had smoothed out kind of a bumpy plan to 3.13% a year for, I think it was 4 or 5 years at that time. Then we have the same 3% assumed growth that you have throughout your budget after that. Debt service is a small increase. This is not actually funding that the school system gets to use, but money that the county is spending on behalf of the school system for their capital program. College, $10.7 million, $100,000 increase. This is also one that's a little bit deceiving because 2 years ago, the commissioners provided some one-time funding. So the increase in that year looked larger than it was. Now, because there's not one-time funding, it looks smaller. This was delayed to this year instead of last year because of how we have to work with maintenance of effort for the community college. Not worth getting into the details of it. Just know that it impacted how we had to address this. But they are getting a 3% increase on their base funding. Then there's also $300,000 for adult basic education and about $100,000 for the entrepreneurship program. Library getting about $9.8 million, an increase of $600,000 or about 6%. That's the 3% basic assumption, and then the additional funding you put in so that they could give a salary increase. Cable Regulatory Commission, just their regular increase. Community Media Center, small decrease. This is because they are funded by part of the cable franchise fee. We've been worried about this for years. We're now seeing it actually decline. We don't know for sure that that will, but it's certainly possible. We are now into a long-term decline in that revenue. This is almost all of the CMC's funding. Between us and the 8 towns, we're all devoting 40% of that cable franchise fee revenue. So there are going to be some interesting things to talk about in the future on this one. Courts, small increase. Sheriff, a very significant increase. This is almost all about the salary change. State's attorney, that increase is about those 2 new positions to handle the work created by body-worn cameras. Animal control, about $100,000, about a $66,000 increase. This is this is largely driven by the replacement of a van. I think they have 4 vehicles. We don't replace one every year, but they get replaced fairly regularly. Fire and EMS, $16 million, an increase of almost $3 million. This is something that's going to be changing over time. As we implement the transition to our combined force, more and more funding that used to go to Visa will be coming to the county. This is not going to all happen at once. It's going to happen over a number of years. But this is something we will watch change as we work our way through the plan and our implementation. Then LoSAP, $1.6 million, an increase of $1.2 million. I mentioned this earlier as one of the uses of one-time funding that we had built into the recommendation to try and put this fund in a stronger position. Ideally, where we want to be with this is that the revenue that's generated there by the investing of the money is enough to cover the cost of the benefits in any year. And we're in a difficult position now because investing money is not is not creating a lot of revenue. But we're looking at this in a longer picture than just the next few years. Citizen services, our nonprofit service providers, about $4 million in total, an increase of about $200,000. That is just the increases that were already built into the plan. The state, this is the health department and social services. It's almost all about the health department though. Board of Elections, $1.8 million, an increase of $300,000. That increase is primarily about those 2 new positions I mentioned earlier. Conservation and Natural Resources, small decrease. Now I mentioned the decrease here. Just in the budgets, the people who actually report to you, if you go through and look at all of them, there's very little happening, which has been true for a number of years now. There are some increases, but it's pretty much where we just have no choice. It's not unusual to see decreases. And even now, the increases that you're going to find are almost all about the salary increase that we just talked about. So on to commissioner agencies. Public safety, an increase of $700,000. This is about those 6 new positions that we added for 911. Public Works, an increase of $1.4 million. There's a lot of things happening here, but this can be fully explained by the $1.5 million commitment you made to renting space for the for the sheriff at North Carroll High School. That change alone is larger than the total increase in Public Works. Citizen Services, a decrease. They're basically flat. This decrease is primarily about, we have a health department grant for our recovery support services facility down in Eldersburg. It's for 22, but it doesn't go on.
So I apologize. So what you're saying is that the state, we have a plan to use state funds to equip the RSS down in South County.
Yeah, for 1 year, it allows you to not have to worry about funding as much.
Right. Okay.
Rec and Parks, a small increase. Comprehensive Planning, a small increase. Comptroller, about $100,000 increase. But that's mostly about one of those support positions for the fire EMS transition that I mentioned earlier. Economic development, small increase. Land and resource management, small increase. Management and budget going up about 200,000. This is about two of those support positions that we talked about earlier. Technology services up about 400,000. Yeah, we've talked about this different times. Technology services is an area we will see increases, even if we're not doing more. We spend so much money now on software and things we're doing in the cloud and maintenance agreements. This is just a growing part of our budget, and there's really no way to avoid it without kind of going back to how we used to operate before the world was this way. Administrative hearings, small increase, and this is fully explained by the change in compensation that you made, that I mentioned earlier. Audio video production, and this is really our public outreach area, small decrease. And I think that's because we bought some equipment last year that we're not buying again this year. Human resources, up $1 million. This is about cost of health care. We significantly reduced it last year because we were able to. So this is increasing from a lower base. This is not because we're suddenly seeing concerns about how much we're funding. It's just reacting to last year's drop. There are 3 positions. These are the other 3 positions that are built in for handling fire and EMS transition. And these, I would argue, are actually the most critical. In the comptroller's area and in budget and in risk management, as we implement, there are things that are going to impact our ability to keep up. But the HR positions are going to be necessary to make this implementation happen. This is where we're going to get people hired and trained and all the stuff that goes along with making that happen. Not in Carroll, a few efforts you fund in connection with managing drug abuse problems. That's we have after-school program and the mobile, what's it called? The mobile call center. That right, mobile crisis unit. So that's what we fund with this 300,000. Commissioners have a decrease, eliminated position. County attorney, a decrease. This is mostly about a position that moved to Public Works. Yeah, so all your legal advice now will be coming from Public Works.
It's all in the sewer.
Her name is Chick. She sits right up front.
We want to debate the elimination of our support position, or just let that go? Did we pick some? Never mind.
We got Vivian.
Right, and just to be clear, that was not a budget. I mean, the budget office did not drive that change.
No, you drove the legal going to DPW?
No, not that one either. We're just recognizing the change. So new positions in 22. The 2 body-worn camera related positions for the state's attorney, the 6 emergency communication technicians, that's the 911 people, 59 positions for the first year of the fire EMS transition. And then the 2 positions, and these, again, well, the state's attorney positions aren't yours, and these positions aren't yours, but for the Board of Elections. If we look at the whole plan, there's another 5 positions for the state's attorney, again, related to body-worn cameras. Those are in 25. 5 positions for the sheriff in 25. And then for back to the commissioners again, and this is all about that fire EMS transition, 155 more positions by the time we reach the end of this plan. Now let's turn to capital for a few minutes. First, just capturing at very high level what's going on. A change from 81 to $109 million. That is primarily about school projects, Career and Tech and East Middle School. So talking about schools, in 22, a total of about $66 million. Just want to point out about $10 million of that is a transfer of funds from the capital fund to the operating budget of $10 million. That pays for debt service. So that's not accomplishing anything new. That's about things we already are doing. $9.5 million for career and tech, $43 million for East Middle School replacement, and then some other smaller projects. Here's just some of the things that are happening. And as we've talked about in recent years, just not as much happening in school construction projects as there once was. We're not doing very many big projects. We're pretty much focused on trying to take care of the little things. And I guess I should mention here too, another thing that we do typically have is a number of HVAC and roof projects. You don't see the same thing in this plan, and that's because the Career and Tech and East Middle School projects have pretty much eaten up the available state funding. That's not to say we might not be able to squeeze in some projects, but it's possible that we won't see any more HVAC or roof projects while we're getting all the funding from the state. And remember, when we get the state funding on these big projects, they don't give it to us at once. They give it to us over a number of years. So this is a concern for a little bit of time yet. Sometimes when people hear about the difficulties of balancing the budget, they'll say something like, well, you just have to not do everything people are asking for. In the Capitol, I want people to understand there's a lot people are asking for that we're not doing it. I'm not going to run through all these projects, but you can see some of the things that have been requested from the school system that are not only not in the budget, but not anywhere in our plan. And that continues on the next slide. Then if we go to roads and bridges, again, I'm not going to go through these, but here are projects that are happening. Here are some projects that aren't happening. And for every project that isn't happening, there's an argument to be made. We should be doing this. We're not in a position where we end up spending much time talking about, wouldn't it be nice kind of projects. The things we're talking about are things that somebody is saying, this really ought to be happening.
Yeah, and we still maintain these as a priority in everything we're doing. They're just not budgeted. I mean, okay.
Bridges, we have our usual maintenance money built in. And then two bridges that show up in 22 are Gaither Road and Hawks Hill Road. Hawks Hill is only $300,000 because that's the design of the bridge. The construction funding will follow. And then if you look at 22 through 27, you see the bridge projects that will show up. With bridges, we do a lot of this with federal funding. 80% of most of our bridge projects comes from the federal government. So building this plan is largely driven by the availability of that federal funding and how we match that to what we're able to do. Then here's some more bridge projects that are in the plan. Conservation and open space. See what we have, about $5 million for Ag Pres in 22, about $3.5 million for dealing with water quality. These are largely federal and state mandates to us. Not to say we wouldn't do any of this if somebody wasn't telling us to, but what we're doing timing-wise is being driven by others.
But just to comment on the land pres, I mean, we had a very lengthy conversation across the board. And, just like some of the other, discussion topics, this was one that was very lengthy and, I think was finally determined by all of us that it is in the best interest of Carroll County and best interest of the culture of Carroll County to keeping the ag program and land preservation. But it was not an easy determination. It was, at least from what I remember, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Okay.
Yeah, well put. I'll let it go at that.
Yeah.
Recreation and culture. This is the place where you actually see more projects than anywhere else, our parks. The reason, though, is because we have a strong source of funding from the state. Program Open Space is a big part of getting these projects done. And when people want to see other things being done, the thing they need to understand is Program Open Space isn't open to the commissioners to say, oh, let's use it for an unpaved road, or let's use it for a library project. It is restricted to these uses. And next slide, some more of those projects. And some more of those projects. Well, now we're into 22 through 27. So up to then, you had just been looking at 22. Now we're looking at things that will come in as we move through the plan. And remember, because we got that extra $1.5 million, there's more in here than what had been. And next slide is more of 22 through 27. And then some other things that are worth mentioning that haven't come up somewhere else. Community college technology, actually, we did mention a little bit earlier as use of the one-time money. The rest of this slide is kind of things we do all the time. This is just keeping up with the things that we have. The next slide, overlays is another ongoing one. Our emergency communication radios, something we have to do every year. Public safety water supply. I don't remember where we ended up on that. We've been accumulating money on this one because we haven't found locations. So I think we've backed off in the plan somewhat of funding. But with that, it's something, if we find that we're using the money, then we'll revisit that. Public Safety Training Center, the last $1 million of state funding. And then Westminster Library, we said the basement improvements. This is the Exploration Commons project. You added $1.1 million toward that project. Systemic renovations at the college. This is taking care of HVAC and chillers and roofs and everything there. Courthouse annex renovation. This is in connection with the space that the state's attorney will vacate when that building is done. Farm Museum Pavilion, we've mentioned. Piney Run Dam rehabilitation. And for those who aren't seeing the slide, that's DAM, D-A-M, not D-A-M-N. But, the commissioners had a lengthy conversation about this. We are being required to make changes to the dam, but we had some choices about how we wanted to go about doing it. This now reflects what we think are the costs of approaching it the way you ended up with. And then public safety microwave network replacement. This is new and was a bit of a surprise to us. We're finding out that existing infrastructure was no longer going to be maintained by the vendor, meaning we had to upgrade. So we hadn't been planning for that. This is something we had to build in kind of last minute. And then the sheriff headquarters, this is something you built in as you went through your deliberations this year. Again, not everything people want is in here. I'm not going to run through all these, but you can see the next 4 slides are things that aren't in the plan. And this doesn't mean everything that somebody asked for that didn't make it in. This is just some of the things that might catch somebody's interest. Enterprise funds, Fiber Enterprise Fund, there's $1 million for equipment replacement. This is something we have to do approximately every 7 years. Solid waste, we've already talked about this some. One thing we didn't talk about, there's $200,000 for a rain flap on cell 3. This is to reduce the surface area of cell 3, to reduce the amount of rain, to reduce leachate, which leads to a cost for us. Not only a cost, but also a burden on the employees there. It takes time. Utilities is another place where we see a lot of projects. Again, these projects are not in competition with other projects because utilities is self-funded. So again, I'm not going to go through all these projects. One that's maybe worth mentioning, the streetscape water and sewer upgrades in Sykesville. People will notice that one.
Well, and that's also in partnership with the state, because it's state 851, state highway. So
yeah, although unfortunately the timing of that isn't
okay.
working very well. Enterprise funds, you can see the 3 years worth of rates that the commissioners approved. Fiscal year 22 will be the last year of that approved setup. So wrapping up, we will have a public hearing at 7 o'clock on May the 11th. That will be virtual again this year. We had some discussions about trying to do it in person and decided that just not time yet to make that call. Budget adoption will be at 1 o'clock on May the 25th. The budget will be available on our website. You can see that on the slide. Or if not, if you Google Carroll County Government, you'll easily find us. This is being worked on right now. We hope this will be online tomorrow. Yeah, and that's, one thing probably worth mentioning. There's a very short turnaround between the time that you make your decisions on what you want the proposed budget to be and us coming for this session and for us getting the book available. By law, we have to have it in the library, but then also available for the public. I suspect very few people go to the library to look at this now. Most people would go online. So again, we hope to have that up tomorrow. On this schedule, something you would usually see is a series of 5 community meetings, what we affectionately call the road shows in the budget office, where I would go to 5 libraries around the county to share this same information and to get input and questions from the people that come. We've had times where nobody showed up. I've done presentations for 1 person. Sometimes we have 40 people. But we're not going to be doing those this year. Same story. Don't think we're in a position to do this yet, particularly since those would be in small library meeting rooms. So it would have been even more difficult to think we could have pulled that off. If people have questions, though, my email is up on the screen right now. Or if you can't see it, if you go to Carroll County Government's website, you should be able to get to me pretty easily. If you have questions, you can send them to me. Now, as always, I'll say, if you have questions about why does the budget look this way, how do I find this information, that you can send to me and we'll try and help you out. If you have things to say that are, I don't like this decision, or I want you to do something that's not in here, I would suggest, well, you can send those to me and I will get them to the commissioners, but you might want to directly send those to the commissioners, because the point there is to offer them input for any decisions they might still make. And between now and the adopted budget, things can still change. I wouldn't expect huge change in the budget. From a mechanical point of view, we very much hope that there aren't huge changes in the budget. But that doesn't mean that something might not change yet before we're done.
So that list of 3 things I have, you don't really want to hear that? Ed? Is that what you're saying? I just want to get it straight.
Well, from a purely workload point of view, fewer changes is better.
Ted, one thing you didn't mention was the revenue. You mentioned some of revenue, but I got an email last night, Commissioner Rothstein heard that you all are going to be increasing our property taxes. And I was like, no. So one thing that's not presented in here, it's all the expenditures, but it's not our taxes. And a slide that may be beneficial to the community because, one, it can be confusing, the numbers. And, I want to make sure that we, the 5 commissioners, are clear in our messaging about when it comes to taxes. Is that?
Yeah, and nothing shows up because I never build in the possibility of tax increases. Until commissioners actually take an action, it's not going to show up. But to your point, to be clear to anybody who's listening or will be watching this later, the commissioners have not made any changes to any taxes, the tax rates. That remains exactly as it was, and this entire plan is built on that assumption in fiscal year 22 and in the future years.
Right. Yeah, I just personally, again, great presentation. You may want to just throw a slide in there saying that in addition, like where you ever have others or wrapping up. Oh, by the way, because I just want, it just be clear. So, okay.
That,
Good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
that happens. Listen, that happens every year.
Yeah. I mean,
Whenever that, yeah, when
Okay.
constant break goes
Yeah.
into the paper,
Yeah.
there's an uptick of, wait, what? And
Yeah.
it's just, I always try to explain to the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 folks, no, that's not what that means. So,
Right.
Right.
When you said that, I wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yes, constant yield ad ran
Yeah.
on Sunday.
yeah, so we got 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. So I just
Yeah.
want to, again, make sure we have a clear message. You package
Right.
it in here, and I can say, hey, this is what is happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So for others who might be wondering about that constant yield advertisement, just so everybody understands, we're required by the state to run that. And we're required to run it exactly as it is. We have to say those words. They even tell us what font to use. It says the commissioners are proposing to raise your taxes, which I would argue is confusing because people think that means their tax rate, which is not what it means. It is saying that based on the existing property tax rate, we will generate more revenue this year than we did last year. And that the commissioners are not suggesting reducing the tax rate to eliminate that revenue increase. Now, I've had this conversation with many people over many years who will say, well, you should keep it at the constant yield. Your revenue shouldn't go up. And that's a choice we can make. But people need to understand, if our revenue is going to stand still, then we can only afford to spend the same amount of money. The cost of providing services will go up.
Right.
So the only way to do that is to reduce services at the same time as you're reducing your revenue. There's no way to avoid that.
okay. Open up any other, I appreciate the work you and your team are doing. Deb, thanks for having the puppet strings and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said it all last week or whenever we wrapped it up. I mean, I think it's been an exceptionally challenging, year and a half, I guess now. And to have a budget like this come out of that challenging year, I think is quite frankly remarkable. And I think the 5 of us, along with your team, Ted, and everyone here, because they all had an input. Everybody had an input. I mean, Wyndham even yelled at us a couple times. So, it takes everyone. And I think it turned out the best that we could. And I continue with my theme of all got some.
And transparency.
And transparency. Yeah, I remind folks about that all the time. And I'm glad you brought that up at the
That's
beginning,
huge,
Ted, because
huge.
it's amazing to me because, I don't know what people in the other counties do when it comes to remarking about their budget process, but
Mhm.
I can't imagine that folks are good with the fact that 10 people huddle behind closed doors and then come out and go, there it is. While we, on the other hand, sit and struggle and debate and everything else in front of everybody's face
You can't get any more open than what we're doing.
now. So I don't know. To those that continue to and we don't have many anymore, but there's a few people that continue to, be challenged by it. I challenge you, watch our sessions. It may very well indeed answer your questions.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any other further comments? Commissioner Boucher,
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Alstein. I just want to state that Director Zaleski's vision and leadership last year helped put us in the position we are this year. So I'm very, very grateful. Sometimes I look at you like you're the shepherd and we're the sheep sometimes, and you herd us all together. But I think your vast knowledge about finances and what we're faced with, not only locally, but in a larger scope with state finances, helps us get these budgets together. And if it wasn't for you warning us last year, we wouldn't be in the position we are today to accomplish what we're doing. So I'm sincerely grateful to you and your staff. Thank you.
okay. Parting comments, Commissioner Wayne, Commissioner Weaver. I think we all said it all. And again, thanks for navigating us to allow us to make the right decisions as commissioners as we're required to do. So, thanks. Let's move on. I think Ms. Celine, a request for approval of the Kellert Foundation grant application for Veteran Services Program. So Gina, Bobby, Debbie, and Celine. I see Celine, Miss Gina, Miss Bobby.
And Debbie will not be joining us due to technical difficulties this morning.
Due to
She sends her
technical
apologies.
difficulties, Debbie will not be joining us. Okay.
So,
Go for
okay.
it.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm here, as you said, with Gina Valentine, who's our Bureau Chief for Aging and Disabilities. And we have Bobby Lawrence with us. She's our Community Services Supervisor. I'm sorry, she's our Aging and Disability Services Supervisor with the Bureau of Aging and Disabilities. And we are here to seek approval to submit the Kellert Grant application and accept the award. As you all are aware, the Kellert Foundation supports our Veteran Services Program here in Carroll County by supplementing us with funding, and they've been doing that since fiscal year 17 to provide emergency assistance to Carroll County veterans that falls outside of what the VA system can provide. And so what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about the proposed budget for this funding, as well as the services that we plan to continue with this award if we are approved. And I'm going to turn it over to Gina Valentine now to provide that information to you and Bobby.
Morning, commissioners. The following services are provided by the grants: case management, emergency housing for homeless veterans, diverting veterans from homelessness, providing emergency assistance, financial assistance for food, gas, clothing, utility assistance, transportation, security deposits, medical related needs, and car repairs. I'll talk about the budget a little bit, and then I'm going to pass it over to Bobby. This grant provides support for a part-time coordinator of case management services for the Veteran Services Program, which we realized very early on, once the Veteran Services Program was implemented, that a case management piece was really needed to assist veterans who, again, have needs that fall outside of what the VA system can provide. The requested budget, as you will see on the briefing paper, for the financial assistance for veterans is $85,000 with no county cash match for a total award of $85,000. We currently have rollover funding in the amount of $36,650, which will support the coordinator of case management services. And the annual amount for that part-time contractual position is approximately $25,600. So which again, we have the funding currently to support that position. So I'm going to pass it to Bobby to provide some additional information about the services and the data.
Sure, thanks, Gina. Good morning, commissioners. A little more specifically, in 2020, the program was awarded $100,000 from the Kellert Foundation. A total of 63 veterans received case management services, and 9 of those veterans, we provided assistance to them as being homeless. 7 were diverted from homelessness. And as Gina mentioned, additional assistance provided to veterans have included food assistance, gift cards, vehicle repairs, medical related needs, and various utility assistance. A part-time coordinator of case management services is supported by the funding received from the Kellert Foundation. So homeless veterans begin receiving case management services the same day they contact our program, and we are able to provide homeless veterans with emergency shelter and various assistance very quickly. Veterans have the ability to be directly connected to our veteran services officers to assess assistance with the pension, compensation claims, to connect to the VA medical system, and also to our shuttle. Thank you.
Okay. Comments?
Well, the Kellert Foundation's been terrific to our veterans here in Carroll County. They attend many of the of our veteran services meetings, and it's just phenomenal what they give back to this community.
Yeah, I agree. I am so proud. Again, I say it often, I guess, lately, be Carroll County and how we take care of our veterans. Greg Kellert participates in the Veterans Advisory Council. I think, again, it's a great opportunity for us to participate in those councils or commissions as commissioners, and then see somebody like a servant leader like Mr. Keller. It's awesome. And you know, everybody will say, "Oh, our veterans deserve it." Well, he puts his money where his mouth is. So,
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
and I like the no match also.
With that, I'd like to move that the Board of Commissioners approve the 2021 Callard Foundation Grant application submission and acceptance of award.
Now I will second it. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Let's get a briefing now on the fees, water and sewer amendments and annexation fees. And there's Ms. Eisenberg. Good morning, Linda.
Hi, how are you today?
Well,
We are here before you. On February 11th, if you recall, we came before you and briefed you on the process for how we do amendments to the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan, as well as annexations for municipalities, including zoning waivers. Since that meeting, we have reached out to all of our municipalities, and we have heard collectively back from them in a letter from March, saying that they would really oppose any fees that were to be collected for water and sewer amendments and annexation processes. They didn't give a reasoning other than they felt that they did not want to open the county-town agreements, which clearly outlines the process for the review time, not what we have to do internally as per MML for annexations, and COMAR for the water and sewer master plan amendments. But felt that this time they were very adamantly opposed to any fees for either of these processes, even though it was anticipated it would be passed through to the applicant. Are there any questions regarding this, and would you like any further information or any other next steps with this particular fee?
comments?
Well, I'm a little taken back by the stance. I'll say that. I mean, I think we've identified the fact over our budget process that you know, some of these fees are necessary to be increased in order to keep up with associated expenses that go along with that. So, you know, to just completely shut it down and say we're adamantly opposed, what was an explanation given? There was no explanation other than we're adamantly opposed.
No, they just said that as a collective group that represents the 8 municipal jurisdictions of Carroll County, we are in opposition to the newly proposed fees for municipal annexation process and water and sewer amendments. In addition, we would appreciate the opportunity to discuss the current memorandum of understanding applicable to each jurisdiction prior to any new fees the county may add. And that's part of the county-town agreement. And then each of the municipalities signed it, either whether it was the planning director, the town manager, or the zoning administrator.
And it was clearly understood that in most cases, these fees are absorbed by
The developer.
the developer
yeah.
or whoever, right?
Correct. And we also told them that there would also be a hardship that could be a waiver imposed on that too. For some reason, if perhaps a property had to annex and do a water and sewer amendment because they had a failing septic and they needed to hook into the municipal system, that was something that we could work with them on to not impose a fee. But obviously, if it was going to be a large development coming in and we had to process something from an annexation standpoint, that we would pass that fee on through the municipality to whoever was coming forward with the amendment, whether it be an annexation or a water and sewer amendment.
So then based on that, I would guess that none of our 8 municipalities are increasing any of their fees on anything. I'm not sure how.
That I'm not sure of what they're doing as far as their fees go.
I mean, I'm trying to be respectful here.
I know.
It's just that it's clearly we have identified over the last 3 months of our challenging budget work that a reasonable increase needs to occur to offset the expenses and what have you. So I don't know what are the next steps. mean, I don't want to just throw that letter aside and not deal with it. But yet, I sure would like to know what the reasonings
I
were
know.
behind it.
And I think, no, I think you're hitting the
It's
nail on the head.
Yeah, just not a letter of, nope, we don't
Right.
like it, move on.
Right.
What, wait, what?
I don't want to judge
No.
the municipalities at this point. What I'd like to do is get better clarity because it just seems very short-sighted. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure why,
Yeah,
especially if they understand, they being the municipalities and the leadership of the municipalities understand the process and how the funds will be.
Maybe
know,
we need just a
pull.
letter of clarification back to them that these fees need to happen for us to, I mean, I'm sure that went out originally, but, you know, maybe a clarification of it.
I'm not really in the mood to clarify anything. I'm sure our staff, knowing our staff like we know, I'm not here to, I don't want to banter back and forth. I want to know why they turned it down. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not here to say, okay, well, we'll make you another off. No,
No other officers.
no, but I'm not here to explain it again.
Yeah.
Or I don't want our staff to have to explain
I
it
mean,
again, Dick.
We're
With all,
going through annexations, we're going through everything. They need to
Okay.
help us pay for it.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I just,
So I think that's good is, asking for not our clarification, but their clarification on why. But maybe there's some hidden reason we just aren't seeing, but it doesn't, come clear at all to me. I mean,
Yeah.
that they're trying to thump their chest, which I'm not going to say they are because I don't want to again judge on them, but this got to be one team. So
what would be the next steps now? Eric, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I saw you were lit up there. I
Thank you
jumped.
very much. Excuse me, Mr. Eisenberg, if I missed the opposition from the municipalities, but was that generated by a simple majority vote of their town councils? Or the opposition was generated just by their administrators? Was there a vote by the publicly elected officials in those municipalities is what I'm getting at?
That I'm not sure of. What I will tell you is no elected officials signed the letter. The letter came from the director of planning, John Breeding from Mount Airy, the town manager of Sykesville, the planning director of Westminster, the town manager of New Windsor, the zoning administrator and town manager of Hampstead, the town attorney for Union Bridge, the city manager of Tawnytown, and the zoning administrator of Manchester. So no elected officials. This was administrative.
Thank you very much for that clarification, because I actually think it's out of their bounds to do that. I think those disagreements with their decision as a legislative body should have been directly addressed by their publicly elected officials and their legislative bodies as well. So we should send them back some sort of letter. If that's truly the town's position, that needs to come forth generated by their publicly elected officials, not the bureaucracy.
I'm sure they were directed to respond in that way by their mayors.
I mean, it sounds like it was a collective process and they all worked together to provide that response and just whoever signed. But I would expect that each town had they all worked together. So,
The point is, did the town councils approve this?
I see your point there. I don't know, but
I don't know.
I'm sure they did, but it wouldn't be hard. We can certainly clarify
We can ask.
that. And based upon the atmosphere of all things everywhere these days, I think the next step should be, we should ask for an explanation to why it was turned down.
Right.
Or why they have a negative response to that. Give us the reasons.
Yeah.
And that would allow us to delve a little deeper. Because like you say, Ed, maybe there's something that we missed. I don't know.
And just for clarification, I did ask for the towns I heard directly from in opposition. I said, please send me a comment about what you don't like about it so I can understand more. And that was something that was not given back. Instead, this letter collectively was sent back to me directly with regard to not wanting a new fee imposed. I will tell you that the county-town agreement would need to be amended if it is moved that we have no fees right now. So this isn't even increasing the fee. It's just simply even adding a fee. We don't have fees for either of these processes. So I would need to work with Mr. Zaleski, who helps to draft the county-town agreement, and the county attorney, Tim Burke, and Ms. Wyndham to redo the county-town agreement, because this is signed off on by you, the county commissioners, and I believe the towns themselves.
Well, Linda, I think the, I don't want to say simple action, but I think the action is sharing with municipalities that you briefed us, on April 27th, about their collective response. And during the discussion, the county commissioners are requesting, more clarification from the municipalities to help us understand. And that's, and then we'll go from there. But
Yeah.
I mean,
And especially based on the fact that these fees weren't just put up just because we can put up fees.
right.
There was a tremendous amount of work put into it to ensure that we were covering the expense of the work that is required in order to do these various things. So it's not like we're just putting up fees to put up fees. We're covering expenses.
Right.
And I think, if I remember correctly, we're just barely covering the expenses with the fee increase.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're barely getting there, so.
Yeah,
this is just
we
to
can't.
cover
we
some of the
can't-
expenses.
I don't think we can expect everyone to continue to do these things for free.
Right.
And that's essentially what we were doing until we put these up to try to cover expenses. That's why I'm a little bit puzzled here. I'm not sure what I'm having trouble figuring out what we're missing here.
I agree. And, the idea is not to go down the road of the unknowns right now and not to make too much assumptions,
Right.
but let's
Yeah.
do this and then go from there. We start making assumptions on this, we're going to go
Right.
down the road we don't want to be.
Yep. Agreed.
So,
Okay.
We will certainly ask.
Linda, you get to stay on and talk to us about Industrial One District that wants to allow self-service storage in the Finksburg Sustainable Community Boundary.
Yes, if I can share my screen, please.
Okay, you have it. And good morning, Mary.
All right, yes, so Mary Lane, Planning Manager, is joining me today on this presentation. So if you recall, we came before you in December when Clark Schaefer submitted a text amendment proposal for the I-1 district to allow mini or self-storage within the I-1 zone. This use is currently prohibited in I-1. Then on March 31st, the Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded to a favorable recommendation to allow this use in the I-1 district. And the recommendation was to limit this to the Finksburg Sustainable Community Designated Boundary. The text change would help serve as an adaptive reuse for existing buildings in the sustainable community that would otherwise be vacant. So again, I'm not going to go through all of the background, but again, as I said, on March 31st, we gave a full presentation twice before the Planning Commission regarding Mr. Schaefer's letter and text amendment, and then spoke with him about the best way to implement this within the I-1. Given that this property that the original text amendment was for, and then discussions with the Planning Commission, felt that this would really serve well in our Finksburg Sustainable Community property. The property that he was interested in the text amendment for is within the I-1 on DD Road for the former site, the tennis barn. And looking at it as a vacancy that is currently zoned I-1 with a fairly recently adopted plan within the Finksburg community, the discussion was that let's limit it to that after we've had several years discussion on the commercial industrial employment campus district, especially with the I zones limiting their retail and service use. And that's why originally this was made prohibited. And Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe self-storage was ever allowed in the IR district. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted, but okay, so that is correct. So again, this is a sustainable community boundary. It's within the Finksburg area. It's smaller than the designated growth area for Finksburg, and it encompasses less than the entire 640 acres of the Finksburg Sustainable Community. This boundary was approved by the state of Maryland in 2019 and allows the Finksburg area a set of tools in the toolbox for revitalization of this community, particularly the 140 corridor going through the heart of Finksburg and 91. So currently within the sustainable community boundary, this text amendment would affect 29 parcels. The I-1 is the light purple, and that's along Industrial Park Drive and DD Road, and then behind some parcels that have frontage on Maryland 140. And it's approximately 70 acres that this text amendment would be affecting. So the proposal would be to allow in the use table, if you can follow the cursor, adding self-storage facility in a sustainable community. It would be prohibited in C1, which is under the current code, permitted in C2, and permitted in C3, which is currently allowed, and then as a conditional use in I1, and prohibited in I2 and in Planning Campus. The reason for the conditional use in the I1 is so that way we can verify that it's within the sustainable community and meets the requirements as set forth in this draft proposal. Also would allow the accessory and outdoor storage of vehicles when it is accessory to the self-storage facility itself. So this would be the additional text added under 158. Also, the definition of the self-storage facility would be self-storage facilities permitted in C2 and C3 as permitted and conditional in that I1 if located within the sustainable community. And then again, the current subject, the current following conditions would still continue to be imposed. No changes there with the individual storage unit height, the maximum area, and the building facade. So as of now, we have tentatively scheduled a public hearing for May 20th. And then as we do with all text amendments, after all the comment period closes, 10 days after the public hearing, we close the record and we would schedule a discussion and decision. Are there any questions with the text amendment itself and the proposed use and the limitations with the sustainable community?
Actually, this one makes a lot of sense where it is. You know, I have no opposition to it.
You sounded surprised, like this one makes a lot of sense, like there's others that don't.
Well, in my opinion, yes. And I'd like to
Thank you
move.
for your candidness.
Before you do that, Dick, did
Okay. go ahead.
PZ handle this one? I don't remember this coming across planning and zoning. Did it or not?
Yes, it did. Yes, that's you referred it to Planning Commission. Planning Commission reviewed it, and on the 31st is when they forwarded a favorable recommendation to the board.
I must have been napping. I don't know what I.
That seat requires a lot of napping.
So you're actually
I don't know.
you're admitting to the napping. You're
One day-
admitting to, you know,
Okay.
not.
I
I'm
may
going to
not.
say he might have not been there that day. He had a lot of conflicts early on with some of the Planning Commission meetings, so I think it was just
Yeah.
one where you weren't able to
I
be
think
there.
that's. Thank you, Linda, very much. I really appreciate that.
Oh,
I apologize for the disruption there, Commissioner Weaver. What were you about to say?
I was going to say, I move the Board of County Commissioners proceed to public hearing for the I-1 zoning district to allow self-storage facilities as conditional use in the Finksburg Sustainable Community. And Linda, would they be available for some of the grants for the front of that building at that time if they change it?
They're available now for grants as part of that sustainable community designation. We have reached out to business owners, not to change the topic, but we have reached out to business owners directly regarding all of the tools with sustainable communities and some of the funding available even from the county as far as the gateway tax credits. We've been actively continuing to move forward with them even with COVID. We just did a survey of the community, and I'm happy to have Claire Stewart come in and let you know the findings of that particular survey and trying to continue to gather interest from that community group to get them the funding they need to do a facade improvements. And also just a really quick side note, we did take this to the Finksburg community group and they were in favor of this amendment as well. We heard no opposition from them, just support.
Okay, before we go any further, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion second in a couple seconds. So any further discussion from us? Seeing here none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have any closing comments or no?
No, no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you so much, ladies.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Let's move on to some DPW, Bureau of Utilities, requesting a fund transfer of $400,000 from the capital account 6382, relief sewer number 10, to the capital account 6418, the North Pump Station, as per resolution number CTEC 21.06, to fully fund the scope of work for the pump station and sanitary main improvement project. Mr. Watcher, go ahead, Andy.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for including me on your schedule for this morning. As was just noted, the Bureau is requesting a fund transfer in the amount of $400,000 from capital account 6382, relief sewer number 10, to capital account 6418, North Pump Station. As per the briefing paper, the original cost basis for the North Pump Station was a replacement facility at the Main Street location in Hampstead. The existing pump station is aging, undersized, and is in dire need of improvements. When it became clear that the development plans of the adjacent IDA property would require a separate sewer pumping station because of the lay of the land, an agreement was reached along with property and funding assistance from the IDA to relocate a new North Pump Station approximately 1,700 feet to the northwest of the existing pump station. This provided two major benefits to the Bureau. First of all, it eliminates the need for a secondary pump station to serve only the IDA property and maintained by the county. And it has provided the Bureau with additional area to expand the size of the North Pump Station and in turn to add features that were not possible in the limited space at the current site. These additional features include a standalone grinder and vault that will greatly benefit the overall long-term operation of the new pump station. However, the relocation does require the installation of 3,500 linear feet of gravity and force main piping improvements from and to Main Street to enable the wastewater collection system to function. These improvements were outside of the original planning parameters and cost estimates for the replacement pump station at the existing location. This transfer request will fully fund the scope of work associated with the gravity and force main piping improvements and will complete the funding needed for the North Pump Station and sanitary main improvement project. The funding source is capital account 6382. This account most recently funded the completed Schoolhouse Road capital project. And this account was earmarked for supplemental funding for the North Pump Station project. Both of these capital accounts are funded by sewage fees, and the fund transfer will not impact the Bureau's overall capital program. Any questions for me?
Does this impact any of the Main Street renovations that were just completed? Will this have any impact at North Pumping Stations? North of that, I don't think it affected, but.
No, Commissioner. We are completely outside of the paving part of the roadway. All these improvements will take place outside of the roadway itself. We're on the shoulder area near the car wash, just north of the intersection with 482.
And this is for the industrial park area.
Yes, that is correct.
They're being, I was by there yesterday, and it's being, they're working on it presently. And this would be I think a boost to the whole area eventually. Industrial pads are being developed off of this. And I think it's 11 sites, I think, up there eventually.
I'm not certain, Commissioner. I'm only focusing on the pump station, but I do believe that there are some major plans for that area.
Question.
Okay. Oh, any other questions,
No.
comments?
Can I just technically second because you already read the motion?
I didn't motion it. Who wants to make the motion?
Well, you read it before.
I read it. I'll motion what I read. Are we allowed to do that, Mr. Burke? Okay. And then I got a second. Okay, I got a motion and a second. Anybody else? Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye.
That was a good call, Commissioner Wayne.
Thank you very
Okay,
much, Commissioner Weaver.
Andy, loosen up the tie, put your feet on the table. You got a bunch of bid approvals coming our way.
Remember how exciting water projects are. Don't forget,
That's right.
okay?
Okay, so the first is a bid approval for the maintenance improvements for Lynn and Bark Hill Water Storage Tank. Go for
Okay,
it.
good morning,
Good morning, Mark.
Commissioners. Yes, we're here to ask your approval to award a contract for the maintenance improvements for the Linton and Bark Hill water storage tanks to Johnson, Marrand, and Thompson in the amount of $32,474. This award is being made via a competitively bid term contract. The proposal amount is within the adopted budget and no additional funds will be needed. And I will turn it over to Andy for the project itself.
Gentlemen, please recall that the board approved the contract award last fall for the inspection services for the Linton and Bark Hill water storage tanks. These inspections were completed and identified an operational issue with the Linton tank and areas of concern with pitting and corrosion on the interior wall of the Bark Hill tank. The award of this contract is to address those matters. First, for the 500,000 gallon Linton tank, the work will include the removal of built up sediment and the installation of a replacement silt ring on the outlet pipe at the base of the tank to prevent any future sediment from leaving the tank. And secondly, for the 100,000 gallon Bark Hill tank, the focus will be on ultrasonic measurements of the wall thickness in the areas that contain pitting and corrosion. These areas were previously identified when the tank was repainted in 2016 and a cathodic protection system installed. These measurements will provide a comparison baseline to ensure that the corrosion has been stemmed. Work on both tanks will be performed by a diving crew while the tanks remain in full service. This is a common practice, and the crew and equipment will be fully sanitized before entering the tanks. Completion of these tasks will assist in keeping the tanks at adequate operational levels of service for the system users. Any questions?
No, but I have a comment. First of all, being a scuba diver, I can't imagine these guys do that, which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that Commissioner Boucher, who always wants a tour, be thrown in the tank after being sanitized with said scuba so that he can see what's going on.
I'll second that.
Like pee in the bottle.
None. That was, okay. Do I hear a motion
That's
on
impressive to do that. So, hey, Andy, how old's that Bark Hill tank? How long's that thing been there? You remember?
I believe it dates to 1992 thereabouts. It was most recently painted in 2016. It's got about a 20 to 25 year life cycle on the painting. So early 1990s.
Okay. Crazy. All right, I'll make the motion that we award the maintenance improvements for Linton and Bark Hill tanks to Johnson, Merriman, and Thompson. The amount of $32,474.
Second.
Oh, good. Got a motion in a couple seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Maureen, I'd say put your feet up on the desk either, but I don't think that's quite appropriate, but it looks like you're going to be here a while with Mr. Andy. And the next bid approval will be talk about the purchase of the Roush Mobile Portable Sewer Camera System.
Yes, you're
good
correct.
quote for Commissioner Boucher.
Andy and I have been very busy. And again, we're here to ask your approval to award a contract for the purchase of the Roush Mobile Portable Sewer Camera System to Atlantic Machinery Incorporated in the amount of $72,129. This purchase will be made via the Virginia Sheriff's Association Heavy Equipment Procurement Program, competitively bid process at a discount to the county. This amount is within the adopted budget. No additional funds will be necessary. And again, I'll turn it over to Andy for the project.
Gentlemen, a portable sewer camera system is a critical need that will greatly assist the Bureau's wastewater collection staff, both when responding to sewer main blockages and backups, as well as for general system inspection and review purposes. The purchase of this camera system will enhance the Bureau's ability to respond and unclog sewer main backups in a timely manner without having to rely on third-party contractors for assistance, especially when reacting to after-hours, weekends, and holiday problems. As Bureau staff currently responds to sewer main backups, they are essentially flying blind, both to location and cause. Staff can only identify what general area the blockage is in by opening sewer manholes and determining whether or not there is an active wastewater flow. Manholes are typically spaced several hundred feet or more apart, and wastewater flow can be backed up through multiple manhole structures. The backups are caused by a variety of issues, from tree roots and rags and grease to the presence of foreign objects such as wooden stakes or kitchen tongs, to cracked or fully collapsed pipe sections. After the initial assessment, an educated guess is made by staff as to where the blockage likely is and what is the cause. The Bureau's jet vac truck is then used in an attempt to open the pipe. If this process does not work after multiple attempts, a camera service contractor is usually called in for assistance. After hours, third-party response is unpredictable at best. Responses can take hours and cost several thousands of dollars per occurrence. While waiting for the camera service contractor response, the jet vac truck is used to collect wastewater from a backed up manhole and transport it and discharge the waste into a manhole beyond the blockage. When the backed up flow cannot be readily handled by staff, third-party septic hauler assistance is required as well. And as you can imagine, if the backed up wastewater is not kept up with, there's a risk of overflow into the environment, or worse, into private homes. For these reasons alone, the camera system will pay for itself in a few short years. In addition to this, staff will be able to use the camera system to perform proactive self-inspection of system sewer mains and identify problems for capital improvement projects. This service is also provided at this time by contractor services. Conducting this service in-house will again result in overall cost savings. Any questions for me?
Didn't we have a camera system?
We have a small thick type system that is mainly used for our lateral pipes at this point in time. They can't be readily used for the sewer mains themselves. This portable camera system is self-propelled on wheels. It's got several hundred feet of line attached to it. It can go great distances up and down the sewer mains.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
It's being used in Mars presently.
This thing come with a maintenance agreement? Andy, I would assume.
I'm certain that it does, Commissioner. I don't know the details offhand, but I'm certain that it does. As a matter of fact, staff recently toured the factory in the Chambersburg, PA area, and they walked away from that with a very good feeling as far as the service aspects go.
Cool. Okay, would it be appropriate for me at this time to suggest that Commissioner Boucher again go? I'm just saying, never mind.
Keep your scuba gear.
Okay, any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I move the Board of Commissioners award a contract for the purchase of a Roush Mobile portable sewer camera system to Atlantic Machinery, Incorporated, in the amount of $72,129 and no cents.
Okay, got a motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Maureen, let's talk about the purchase of Sensus iPearl residential water meters over at Parkside at Warfield.
Okay, again, we are seeking your approval for the purchase of 72 Sensus iPearl 1-inch residential water meters from LB Water in the amount of $30,517.20. LB Water is the sole authorized distributor of Sensus products within the state of Maryland. This cost is developer funded and has no budgetary impact on the Bureau of Utilities. And again, I will turn it over to Andy.
Gentlemen, as Maureen just said, this is a developer-funded purchase. Basically, what happens is the developer community pays fees to pay for these water meters, and as the homes are finalized and are ready to connect to the county water service system, my staff actually goes out and installs the water meters. So the 1-inch meter size supports fire suppression flow volumes and is the standard size for new home construction at this point in time with the fire code in place. And as you are aware, the Census iPearl water meter is the Bureau's current residential standard. We use 3/4 inch meters on pre-existing homes. It's a fairly straightforward item. Any questions for me?
The Parkside at Warfield, they're townhomes, and I don't believe there's 72 townhomes yet built. They're going to go up to 140. So I'm just curious why they're getting 72 now. Maybe just to order them and push the builders to get those others up. I don't know, but
my assumption, Commissioner, would be that these 72 units were part of those development plans that have been approved so far, and the fees were required as a total payment for these.
Okay. I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners award the purchase 72 Census iPearl 1-inch residential water meters to LB Water in the amount of $30,517.20.
Second.
I've got a motion, a couple seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay. Maureen, let's talk about the installation of residential water meter vaults within the Freedom District. Seems like that's like an every other week discussion over at Sorrel Drive and Jacobs Court, along with Ridge Road.
Yes. We again are seeking your approval to award a contract for the installation of the water meters within the Freedom District service area to Mid-Atlantic Utilities Incorporated in the overall amount of $98,250. This award will be made via competitively bid term contract. These locations were bid as 3 separate groupings to generate interest and competitive pricing. Bids were solicited from 4 contractors and proposals were received from 2 of these contractors. The proposals are summarized below in the briefing paper that you have, and the bid amount is within the adopted budget and no additional funds will be necessary. And again, for the project itself, I will turn it over to Andy.
Gentlemen, as you are most definitely aware, this is the latest chapter in the ongoing continuing system-wide upgrade from indoor meters to the outdoor meters and vaults. It is similar, obviously, to many previous projects that I have presented to the board over the past several years. Now, the good news is to date, 7,197 of the 8,230 Freedom District residential accounts have been fully upgraded to outdoor vaults and meters. With this project, the completed total will increase to 7,260 residential accounts and will leave a balance of 969 units. Of that number, 279 are the more challenging townhouse units. The Bureau has most definitely accelerated the upgrade project and plans to have the overall system completed over the next 3 fiscal years. As stated previously, this item includes 3 separate groupings. Sorrel Drive has 18 townhouses. Jacobs Court has 36 townhouses. And Group 3, Ridge Road, has 10 single-family homes. Mid-Atlantic was the low bidder, right, on 2 of the groupings and tied for the 3rd. The tiebreaker that the Bureau used was the overall lowest bid for the 3 combined projects. And as I have explained with previous meter vault projects, this item continues to reflect the Bureau's proactive approach to grouping meter upgrades by street or by area for cost and time savings, and transitioning away from the individual task approach. And we have seen substantial cost savings over the past several years. The average unit cost for these 3 groupings is $1,535 as compared to an average cost of $2,500 per unit that occurred in the not so distant past. Any questions for me?
Any questions, discussion? Why was you said this is 1,500 compared to in the past was 2,500? Did we find the best opportunity now with the 1,500? So for future, why that's a huge difference.
It's a very large difference.
Yeah.
remarkably, when I came on board here, the meter vaults were installed on an individual basis, on a per each type basis, with no large scale planning for entire roadways or communities. So my staff and I saw the benefit in transitioning to a bid type process for roadways or areas to see these cost savings. And indeed, with our past bids, that has come through in great value.
No, absolutely. Appreciate that leadership and going after that cost savings, because that is definitely significant. I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners award three contracts for the installation of water meter vaults within the district service area to Mid-Atlantic Utilities Incorporated in the overall amount of $98,250.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Let's see, where you want to take us now? Take us to purchasing of a Yale model, which it's a forklift for Hempstead wastewater treatment. Go for it.
Okay.
No, I didn't know what a Yale model was. I knew it was in Harvard, as Commissioner Wayne shared with me. Now I know it's a forklift. Okay.
I went to Harvard,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah.
We are asking your approval to award the purchase of a Yale Model GP050MX forklift to Eastern Lift Truck Company in the amount of $26,799. This cost is made available to the county via the State of Maryland Department of General Services contract, which is a competitively bid process. The amount is within the adopted budget and no additional funds will be necessary. And again, I will turn it over to Andy to answer any questions for you.
Gentlemen, this item is for the purchase of a 5,000-pound capacity forklift for the Hampstead wastewater treatment plant. The forklift is needed by staff to lift and transport industrial tote-sized quantities of chemicals throughout the facility, with the operational changes resulting from the new buildings and treatment processes as part of the E&R upgrade project. The warranties include a 12-month, 2,000-hour manufacturer's warranty and a 36-month or 6,000-hour powertrain warranty. I believe those are pretty standard for the forklift world. And any questions for me?
If I may, President Rothstein, I have to publicly announce that I do business with Eastern Lift Truck Company, and I'll have to abstain from this.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I move the Board of Commissioners award the purchase of a Yale Model GPO 50MX forklift to Eastern Lift Truck Company in the amount of $26,799.
So if we don't get this forklift, does that mean Commissioner Weaver, since it's in his district, needs to go over there and lift these things? Because I'm on the fence with this.
All the chemicals are going to have to be lifted to treat the plant.
And that would be
by
you,
hand.
correct?
No. We
All right,
rotate.
All right, I'll second it then.
Okay, I got a motion second. Thank goodness for that. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, 3 up and one abstention. Let's talk about the courthouse annex and how we're gonna do a brick repair.
Okay. Again, we are requesting approval to use a term contractor, Lyons Construction Company, for the repair and replacement of bricks and window and door caulking at the courthouse annex in the cost of $55,000, which includes all the material, the labor, and equipment to complete this project. This amount is within the project budget and no additional funds will be needed. And I can turn it over to Justin and Thad to answer any questions you may have.
Morning, Commissioners. Thad Highlander, Facilities Project Manager, is with us today. He started this work here for facilities, so I'm going to turn it over to Thad to give you a little bit of background information and any questions you may have here today.
Morning, Commissioners. The background of this site is the annex was built in 1956, and this work is needed to preserve the structural integrity as well as the aesthetics of this building. This project will pertain only to the rear and the alley side of this building. Lyons Construction will be removing and replacing 1,000 delaminating bricks with masonry point up in any areas concerned. He will also be removing and replacing the caulking at 36 windows and 2 doors to lessen water intrusion into the building. With the background complete, are there any questions?
Sounds like it's needed.
Any questions? Go ahead, please.
I'll make the motion to award the contract for the courthouse annex to Lyons in the amount of 55 grand.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we got 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, now let's talk about bid approval request for installation of emergency equipment for sheriff's vehicles, Maureen and Keith.
Okay. We request your approval to award the purchase of emergency equipment and installation for 6 vehicles for the Sheriff's Department to Priority Install LLC in the amount of $68,782.66. The emergency equipment and installation are awarded through the Montgomery County, Maryland contract 1074704, which is a competitively bid process. The cost is within the adopted budget and no additional funds will be necessary. And I'll turn over any questions you might have to Keith.
Good morning, Commissioners. If you recall, a few weeks ago, you approved 6 new vehicles, 4 for the Sheriff's Department, 2 for the Detention Center. This is the cost to cover the lighting, sirens, installation for all of that equipment for those vehicles.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
No, I'll move the Board of Commissioners award the purchase of emergency equipment and installation for 6 vehicles for the Sheriff's Department to Priority Install LLC in the amount of $68,782.66.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion second. Any discussion? Questions? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, Keith. Thank you very much, Maureen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Now you get to go away. Okay, let's request approval to use a term contract with HTI Contractors to replace failing stormwater pipes on Stone Ridge Court. And we should have Doug, Jim, and Kathy. There's Kathy, Jim, and Doug. Okay. Doug, would you like to start it?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. As you said previously, we are here this morning seeking your approval to use a term contract to replace 2 failing stormwater pipes on Stone Ridge Court near the intersection of Melstone Valley Way. Both of these are corrugated metal pipes, and both are plus or minus 12 feet below the surface. These have rusted in the bottom, causing a large void in the earth below, and a hole or depression has developed in the surface. First pipe, roughly 80 feet section, 24-inch in diameter, and the second is 33 feet long, 15-inch in diameter. Because of this depth, the Department of Public Works does not have the necessary equipment to make the repairs, so we are requesting to utilize HTI Contractors to excavate, make the repair, and then return the site to its original state. No permits are required for this work, and Stone Ridge Court will be closed during construction activity. It'll return to normal operations overnight and during weekend periods. Advance notification will be made to the property owners, the Homeowners Association president, and appropriate public safety agencies. Estimated time for us to complete this project is 2 working days, weather permitting. And the estimated cost is $32,560. Now, Jim and Kathy, both subject matter experts, are on, and if you have any questions of us, we're glad to answer them at this time.
Okay, any questions? I mean, pretty straightforward.
Whose district is this?
This is
it Dennis's?
Should be Mr. Commissioner Rothstein's. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's down near
it's down.
Yeah, it's in Eldersburg.
It is mine.
Yeah,
Right.
I know where Mel
It is,
down, yeah.
it is mine, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Move the Board of Commissioners authorize the Department of Public Works to use the term contract with HTI Contractors for $32,560 to replace failing stormwater pipes on Stone Ridge Court near the intersection of Millstone Valley Way.
Second.
Okay, got a motion in a couple seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, really appreciate getting this work done. All in favor? Aye. Okay, 4-0.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Before you three go, I just want to state that as far as being a commissioner, you three are so critical for us as commissioners to fulfill our duties to constituents. When I call up, you guys are on top of your game, and I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any callers?
We have no callers online currently. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I need an approval or review and approval of the April 22nd closed meetings. I think it was on property and acquisition.
I move we approve the April 22nd closed land acquisition.
Yep.
Meeting, yeah, whatever. Oh.
Thank you.
I lost my place. Yeah. Yep, April, okay, got a motion, got a second on it. Any discussion on it? Hearing, seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, for open admin, does anybody have anything for open admin?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
The legislature passed this recently. Now, it won't take place for a little while yet, that we're going to have to set up the boards for the sheriff's department, or eventually going to have to look at that. I would like to get a little proactive with this and think about starting to look into this through the county attorney, maybe a couple commissioners, to start to investigate where we're going with this, how we're going to look at these items as they're being
Right, right. So
presented.
already discussing that, thank you. But there are no regulations yet.
The
So,
regulations are being developed. I just wanted
Right.
to make sure we get on top of it ahead of
Yep.
time.
already asked Mr. Burke to bird dog that for us, so he's on top of it.
That was fast.
Yeah.
that was fast.
That's how we do it here in
And
Carroll.
it's the mind, okay?
We are ahead of the
Anything
game,
else
baby.
for open admin?
Great idea, and I think it's good. So, yeah, to get ahead of that,
Um,
Dick. Nicely done.
No, the census numbers are out, so things are gonna start moving, at least in a direction, informing the committee.
Well, the gross number, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, right.
Yeah, not enough for the committee to do any work with,
But-
or any of the committees. I mean, clearly the one Carol has is not the only one, but
And just
yeah.
just saw national news
Right.
about the states, which ones are losing, which ones are gaining seats, all that kind of fun
Right.
stuff.
Exactly. So it is a start.
That's right. Okay. Anything else for the good of the group? Mr. Burke? Ms. Wyndham?
No, thank you.
Okay, next open session will be Thursday morning at 09. We will have open session, then we will have a joint session with delegation at 1 p.m. on Thursday. The agenda is pretty much out, and we will make sure that it's out to the public as well for their
2
interest.
o'clock or 1 o'clock?
Is it 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock? Oh,
Two.
I apologize.
Peace.
2 p.m. 2 p.m.
And I'll be watching virtually at some point because I will not be here on Thursday.
You will not be here on Thursday for either session.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll be watching all virtually.
But Commissioner Frazier will be back. Yeah, you know. Okay.
He comes in, I go.
Interchangeable
Right.
commissioners.
We're gonna attempt to do that throughout the year just to see how it works.
Rotating chairs up there.
Well, I like this chair. It sits differently. We're gonna have to work a
Do
deal.
I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I need a second, please. I'll second. Okay. I got a motion second. Any further discussion?
So,
Aye. All in favor? Aye. Come on,
Aye.
Eric. Okay. She can handle it. And you get to go to lunch with the BMC.
yeah,
That'll be fun.
Mike has some information to share. We'll see what that is.
Hopefully it's money.